Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and in this week's video we are going to be talking about safe Norse Pagan symbols. This is a patron suggested or rather requested video. They can do that once a month, so in case you are also interested in influencing what kinds of content I post, then make sure to check out my Patreon or my YouTube membership. Before we start out though, sorry for the more sporadic uploads at the moment. We are currently renovating our house and also moving. Now that I'm filming, I will be moving in 2.5 weeks. So I'm at the same time renovating the house and also packing and decluttering and giving away stuff in my flat and cleaning and everything. So I'm doing a lot of things at the same time, and quite frankly, I don't really have a lot of time to film. Honestly, I also don't really have a lot of brain space and energy to film. So that is why the uploads at the moment will be a little bit sporadic. Once I am settled into the house, then there will be regular content again and probably more fun and interesting content. I'm planning lots of vlogs, for example, about settling in a new environment in a new house, just in general on new land with new spirits around you, kind of documenting how I'm settling in on a more spiritual basis. So there will be more interesting or more exciting content. For the time being, I will probably be making more relaxed content that takes less effort for me to make, because also if you look at that, I am already like halfway packed, so I don't have any access to my books, so I can't really make any educational content. Just bear with me. I'm guessing that in like a month or 1.5 months the content will be back to normal, but until that point it will probably be a little bit more sporadic. I will probably miss some uploads here and there, but let's jump into the video. Alright, let's hop into the video with a little bit of background. So why did my patrons even feel the need to request this video? Why is there a need for a video on safe heathen symbols? Aren't all heathen symbols safe to wear or to display? If you are not a Norse pagan, then you may not really know, so I thought I would just quickly mention why there really even is a need for a type of video like this. Sadly, it's a fact that white supremacists and also neo-Nazi groups are very inspired and excited about anything pre-Christian, Germanic and also Scandinavian. In my video on the misappropriation of the runes, I already went into the whole historical background for that. So if you're interested in that, I don't really want to repeat myself here, but if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend that video too. So you can check that out here. Nowadays, it is a sad fact that white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups really like Norse paganism and anything pre-Christian Scandinavian, pre-Christian Germanic. With that also comes a fascination for the symbols of that time. A lot of Viking Age symbolism, for example, is being widely used by white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups. Runes are a very, very sad example for that. The swastika is an example for that. The Valknut, for example, is also an example for that. It's also heavily misappropriated. So as a Norse pagan, you are sitting there thinking, okay, I don't want to be mistaken for a white supremacist or a neo-Nazi or a member of any kind of hate group. So how can I show to the outside world that I am a proud heathen, that I am a proud Norse pagan, but I am not at the same time a white supremacist or a neo-Nazi? So you kind of have to figure out which symbols are misappropriated by these groups, which symbols are misappropriated so much that I cannot really use them anymore. And honestly, I don't think it is a black and white issue. I think it's a scale. I think there are symbols that are very much not savable, like the swastika, for example. Nowadays, if someone sees the swastika, they will think of Nazi Germany. So swastika is a very good example for a symbol that you should never wear. In Germany, it's illegal to display that symbol if it's outside of like a historical, educational context. So that's, for example, a symbol that you should never wear. There's also symbols that are very, very safe, that are not misappropriated at all. So these are very, very positive symbols that you can always wear because they don't have any negative associations. And there are also symbols in the middle. I think it's not like there are symbols you can't and that you can use. There are also symbols in the middle that are sometimes misappropriated by some groups, but it's not widely known that they are misappropriated, and I think in the right context you can still display them. Sometimes it just depends on the context and on the other symbols that you're wearing alongside them. So let's get into that. Sadly, I think as long as these hate groups are feeling safe and feeling inspired by our faith, by Norse paganism, as long as that is the case, they will always be misappropriating our symbols. So I think the main goal here should be to prevent them from even just existing in the faith. I think the goal should be to make them as uncomfortable in the faith as possible, to exclude them everywhere, to show very, very publicly that they are not welcome. The end goal should be that we don't have these people in our faith anymore. Because if that's not the case anymore, then nobody is misappropriating these symbols anymore. If that was the case, we could just use any symbols. Wouldn't that be nice? But sadly, that's not the case. A lot of symbols are being misappropriated. But as I already said, I think there are symbols you can very much still wear in the right context. If I am correct, I already went a little bit into that in my video on the misappropriation of runes. I think I already spoke about that a little bit in that video. There are some runes that are heavily misappropriated, like the Sovilo rune, for example, but there are runes that are less misappropriated. I think if you use the right runes, that's just an example, I'm just taking runes as an example here. If you take the right runes in the correct combination and in the correct context, you can wear them. I would never say you cannot wear any runes. I think it always depends on the context. So, for example, let's take me. I am very white, I am blonde, I have blue eyes, and I have a bald head. So I personally wouldn't wear runes very, very publicly on my body. I would love to get runes tattooed, but I am aware that I am looking a certain way, and that if I am also putting runes on top of that, it wouldn't really matter which runes they are. There is the chance that people will mistake me for a neo-Nazi simply because of the way I look. They are not at fault for that. So I am deciding, because my bodily context is a certain way, that I will not display as many heathen symbols as I would like. Would I look a different way? Maybe I wasn't as white as I am, maybe if I didn't have a shaved head or anything like that, if my bodily context was different, then I would probably feel more comfortable displaying more heathen symbols. That's what I mean by context. But you can also take the context in a different way. So, for example, if you want to display even a Valknut, I think you can wear a Valknut, even though it's kind of heavily misappropriated, but I think you can still wear it in a certain context. So let's just say you decide to wear a Valknut, but you are deciding to wear it, let's say, combined with an LGBTQIA+ flag right next to each other, or even, let's say the Valknut is rainbow colored or something like that. Something that very, very publicly shows, okay, yes, I'm wearing the symbol, but I'm actually not a neo-Nazi or a white supremacist or like a bigot, you know? If someone sees another person wearing an LGBTQIA+ flag, they will most likely not think that you're a neo-Nazi. At least I wouldn't make that association, you know? So I think you can combine symbols in a certain way to kind of show people, okay, I am a heathen, but I am not a member of a hate group. And that's what I mean by context. You have to be very aware of what you look like to the outside and then kind of think, okay, can I wear this combined with whatever else I'm wearing and the way I look, or could people mistake me for one of those? But now I know you're not here for my rambling, but for some example symbols, so let's get into that. Disclaimer, a lot of them are modern symbols. Why? Because a lot of actual old symbols are very heavily misappropriated. nice. But modern symbols are also cool, so it's fine. The first symbol is the triple horn of Odin. This is kind of half historical and half modern because it's a modern reinterpretation of a carving from a runestone. I could not pronounce the name of the runestone, so I will put it here, that runestone. If you want to look at it, I will probably put up a picture, but that runestone includes a symbol that kind of looks like 3 horns intertwined, and there's a modern interpretation of that. It's the triple horn of Odin. The historical meaning of the actual symbol on the runestone is unknown. Of course, there are some speculations, but we don't know for sure what it really means. But the modern interpretation, of course, well, it's the triple horn of Odin. So, of course, the modern interpretation ties back to the meat of poetry, and with that, of course, to poetry, to wisdom, to anything that concerns Odin. Next up is the web of Weird, which you will most probably know if you are a Norse Pagan. I think it's a rather commonly used symbol. Strictly speaking, it would be Anglo-Saxon because the term Weird is actually an Anglo-Saxon term. It's not strictly pre-Christian Scandinavian, but as we all probably know, there are such huge overlaps between Anglo-Saxon mythology and faiths and pre-Christian Scandinavian faiths. And as far as I know, the term weird kind of has like huge overlaps with the Old Norse term urður, so they are kind of equivalents to each other. With that, the web of weird kind of symbolizes like the web of fate. If you have the web of weird and all of these different intertwined strings, it's kind of a web of life, a web of fate. And that is a very, very safe symbol. It's a very modern symbol, not historical at all, but I think it's a very, very beautiful symbol. Then we have the Mask of Odin, which kind of exists in various iterations. This one represents Odin, duh. It doesn't really have any historical ties. There are some depictions of faces and masks on runestones, for example, but as far as I know, it's not necessarily, strictly speaking, the Mask of Odin. And the Mask of Odin that is used as a symbol nowadays, I think that one is not historical, it's modern, but since it is modern, it's not usually misappropriated, so that is nice. Next up, a very innocent one would be Yggdrasil, so simply a tree. I think that one is so innocent because it's literally just a tree that it's probably because of that it's not being misappropriated, but that doesn't make it less meaningful. I think still any kind of tree of life symbology is great. It exists in so many different cultures. People can really connect to that symbol, so I get it. And then I decided to add Mjolnir on the list. Hear me out here. Thor's hammers are being misappropriated, yes, because they are most probably the most prominent Norse pagan symbol that exists. It is so important and so well known, of course it's being misappropriated. But I think with the Mjolnir, I think it heavily depends on context. A Mjolnir is not usually used as a symbol by hate groups by itself. Usually it's kind of combined with a slogan or with the name of the group or something like that. And also I think Thor's hammers on necklaces and stuff are worn so heavily also by people that are not even Norse pagans. While it is being misappropriated, it is so well known and so just worn by so many regular people that people don't necessarily see it and link it to neo-Nazi groups. While it is being heavily misappropriated, it's not a symbol where people look at it and would be like, okay, you are a white supremacist, you know? So I think it is rather safe, especially if you wear it in the right context. I would deem the Mjolnir rather safe, even though it's heavily misappropriated. It's a tricky topic. It's a tricky topic. It's definitely not black and white. And then I actually found another symbol, a modern symbol, that I didn't even know existed, and that is Sleipnir's knot, which is kind of interesting. It's like a depiction of Sleipnir, which there are a lot of pre-Christian, Scandinavian, and also Germanic depictions of horses. And it's usually kind of a historical depiction of a horse, but of course with Sleipnir's 8 legs kind of intertwined like a knot or like a web. So that looks really cool. And yes, it is definitely a modern symbol, but it's a really cool symbol. And I didn't even know that it existed before I was looking at more symbols. And I personally think it's really cool. I think more people should wear it and incorporate it. It's really fun. And then of course we have some runes that are not usually misappropriated. Again, if you're interested in that, then watch the video that is linked everywhere. There are runes that are heavily misappropriated. There are also runes that are not usually misappropriated. So it always depends on which ones you pick, but I think there are safe runes out there that you can use. There is a lot of heathens that don't really put their focus on the Viking Age, but also on stuff before that. So I thought, why not also bring back some Bronze Age symbols? I am personally a huge fan of Bronze Age Scandinavian art. It's beautiful. And there are also some symbols that are very recognizable. So for example, these typical Bronze Age ship carvings, I think they are beautiful, so pretty. I love those. And also, for example, the sun cross. I mean, that's one that is used by a lot of different cultures. And I think it's very, very cool. So why not use that, for example? Also, I should mention the sun cross is sometimes misappropriated in a specific context where, if you know, like the typical sun cross, just a circle with a cross, but sometimes it's used in a way where the cross kind of protrudes outside the circle. I will put it up because I don't know how to explain it, but it's used like that sometimes by some hate groups, like in their logos and symbology. So better don't use that. But I think if you use a normal sun cross, then that is totally fine. And in general, Bronze Age Scandinavian art is beautiful. So you don't have to kind of get stuck on the Viking Age stuff. You can definitely go earlier than that. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention two examples that a lot of people kind of think are heathen symbols or Norse Pagan symbols or pre-Christian symbols that are actually not, and that's the Vikvisir and the Ægishjálmur. They are not pre-Christian Scandinavian. They are actually, I think, from the 18th century, if I am not mistaken. They are Icelandic magical staves. They are pretty modern. They have nothing to do with pre-Christian Scandinavia. So while those are very, very cool symbols, I love Icelandic magical staves. They are so cool. They have honestly more to do with Solomonic seals than they do with pre-Christian Scandinavia. I just wanted to quickly mention that as something that a lot of people kind of tie to Norse paganism, but it really doesn't really have anything to do with it. So I just wanted to very quickly mention it. But that being said, I hope my patrons got what they wanted. I hope you learned what you wanted to learn. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up and ring the bell down below so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Make sure to check out my other socials. And in case you want to support this channel, which of course I would love, then check out my Patreon or my YouTube membership. And I will see you in another video. Bye!